Richard Massey here. Today we're going to be looking at one of my favorite little 2¼ square cameras. People are frequently asking me about what do I recommend for an entry-level medium format camera. And I'd have to say this is probably near the top of the list. It's a Yashica Mat 124G. And when I was in college, I used to use this to do weddings and all, way back in the 70s. And they're great. The quality is good. The features are very much like the old Rolleiflex, the German Rolleiflex. Has all the same features. And this particular model is mostly metal, a couple little plastic pieces. But there's another version prior to this was the 124 without the G. The G just simply means gold for the plating for the light meter and the battery. So that's really the only difference. So if you're interested in getting a medium format camera, just getting started, this might be a good choice for you, or the 124. They're made exactly the same. Some people actually prefer the 124 because it doesn't have any plastic at all. But they're great cameras. They work very well. Square format, 2¼ square, just like a Hasselblad or a Rolleiflex. And it's a twin lens reflex, so you're actually focusing and looking through the top lens, that's the viewing lens, and then the bottom lens, that's the taking lens, and they're both very, very sharp. It's nice and bright. The viewfinder on these are just amazing. Big screen, it's like watching a little television almost. And focusing knob is here, just focus in and out. You see the lens moving in and out. And two controls on the side, these little buttons here, these will change the shutter speed and also the f-stop. And as I said, you can use the same accessories as the Rolleiflex and get the filters, the bayonet type filters or lens shade. This model has a built-in light meter. It's very accurate. I just checked it with my spot meter and it's really right on. And has the battery compartment here, and that just unscrews. You can have that there. And of course the focusing. And the front here, this is a PC connector. Plug your PC cord in there. And one of the things I like about this, it's got a cold shoe. And the cold shoe lets you put a flash on there or some accessories. And the Rolleiflex doesn't have that actually. And two reasons a lot of people like this over the Rolleiflex, just because it's a little simpler to use. It's easier to load the film, and it's got the little hot shoe here. And on the side, we have two settings. We have an M and an X. That's just a type of flash unit you're going to be using. The M is for bulbs, and the X is for flash. Nobody's using bulbs these days, but people often ask, what is that feature all about? Well, the M with a flash bulb, it doesn't just instantly give all of its light. It just starts to burn, to peak, and then it burns down. So what this is kind of a delay, and it kind of hesitates on the shutter opening to catch the maximum amount of light, so it's very consistent that way. When you put it to the X down here at the electronic flash setting, that just shows that it's going to fire the electronic flash instantly. The flash goes and the shutter goes off. One of the nice things about these have the leaf shutter, so you can sync your flash at any shutter speed, all the way up to 500. This goes up to a 500th of a second, and so that's really good for flash fill if you're using outside. And as I mentioned, I used to shoot this with weddings when I was in college. I kind of helped supplement my income by doing weddings on the weekends. And my buddy had a Rolleiflex and I had the Yashica, and we would work together, and all square format. The albums that we made were 10 by 10 inches, so those were pretty nice. But you couldn't tell the difference between this and the Rolleiflex. And so primarily because we're using flash all the time and shooting at a smaller shutter speed, so keep that in mind. They're excellent quality. Down at the bottom, there's a little knob here, a little lever. You pull that over, and that's a delayed timer. Give you a 10-second delay. Have to have this cocked. You wind, advance the film there. It's got to be put in that position. If you have the timer over here, then you push the start lever, and it'll go and fire off in 10 seconds. So that's really handy, because a lot of people say, well, yeah, it's just for self-portraits. Well, no, not really. There are often times that you'll want to put this camera in a kind of unusual positions, and this will allow you to get a little delay. I'll show you a sample of that. One of the things that's nice about using this type of reflex finder and all, this is kind of a sports finder. It's got a pop-up magnifier here, so basically this is normally the way you're focusing. Look through the screen, look through the magnifier, focus on the ground glass, and then have your settings done, and just take the picture. But there are times when you might want to use this. It's a very valuable tool. A lot of people say, well, what do you use that for? Well, you can pull this up all the way, and it gets the magnifier up out of the way, opens this front window, and then you've got this little peephole back here. So you can then look through this, and you can follow the action. Great advantage, because if you're just using the ground glass and you focus here, everything is left is right and right is left. So if you're trying to follow somebody and you're focusing like this and they go to the right, you're going to go to the left, and you're going to get really confused. But if you pre-focus, go ahead and pre-focus at the distance you anticipate your subject moving through. And I used to shoot a lot of barrel races, the rodeos, and I'd get in a good position, and they were hiring me to do this. I'd get in the right position, and I'd pre-focus, and then when the horses came right around that big barrel, I wouldn't be doing that. I do my fine focus like this, but then when they got in the right position, I'd be ready to go, and I just focus through here, follow them, boom, and I'd get perfect shots, really nice and sharp. So that's a good handy tool. The other thing, if you want to have a high angle view and shooting down, there are oftentimes occasionally we have to shoot over, well, in my days I used to shoot over a crowd or something, but if you need a higher angle, you can kind of pre-focus the regular way, and then you can just hold this up over your head after you've already really pre-focused, and you can shoot that way. If it's awkward for you to hit the shutter release button, it's not a big deal. You can just fire the button there, or you can set the self-timer, and then 10 seconds going to come up, and maybe you want to steady it a little better with two hands, so that might work for you. But it's a really good thing to do. And I'm photographing some tires over here on this dam. There's some tires hanging on the wall there, little bumpers. And when I focus like this, the tires are hanging up a little higher. So if I do this, they're going to be kind of distorted a little bit. I don't want that upward angle. So what I'll do, I'll focus on the far end of the tire, and then I'll just pop this out of the way, and then I'm shooting up at a little higher angle. And if I find that's not high enough, I can always invert it and shoot this way, and that would give me a little higher view. So this is a very versatile tool to be able to have that type of finder. And this is removable, and the light meters up here. There's the battery compartments there, as I mentioned, and it's very accurate. It's a tough little camera. It's pretty much all metal, just a couple little plastic pieces. But I want to show you how to load this, then we're going to go over and take some pictures. To start with, you'll notice on the bottom, this nub here, C for close, 0 for open. There's a little locking pin here. And as I turn this to the open position, this slides out and releases from that little locking pin and comes right open. Now this camera is capable of shooting 120 or 220. And you can see we have it set up here, 12 exposure for our 120. If we were going to shoot 220, we'd have to push the pressure plate, move it down a little bit. And also there's a different markings. Here you'll see that there's one that says for 220, film start. And then on this side, there's one here for 120, 12 exposure, 24 exposure. So today we're just going to be shooting 120, and when you first open your camera, you probably have there'd be an empty reel here, but I've already moved it up there. So I'll just place the fresh roll on the bottom, turn this key till it locks in with your film, and on a Rolleiflex, your leader film would go under and then over, but Now we're just going to take this and put it over and engage it in the take-up spool. And we can advance that a little bit. We want to keep a little slack on it. There we go. And what we're looking for is that there'll be an arrow across here on the paper. And remember the marking here for 120. So we just put it right to there. And then we just close it. And lock this over here for close. And this pin is going to be locked in place here. Perfect. Next, all we have to do is look in the window here, and we'll advance until it's 1. There, it automatically stops at 1, but you can't fire until you put this up and bring that back over. And this is what you'd use to fire it right here, but we have the lock here. I'm going to lock it whenever I put a fresh roll in there, so we don't accidentally fire it off. So just switch that over to the lock position, you can't fire it. Now, today I'm going to be using a deep orange filter of my black and white film. And the way that fits, this is an interesting mounting system. They have an inner bayonet and an outer bayonet. Now the inner bayonet is where you mount your filters. Just put them in there. This is a Rolly deep orange filter. And then we have our lens shade, and that goes on the outer bayonet. And that just locks in place there. So that's all we have to do to head out and take some pictures now. Okay, now we're at the top of the dam, and I've scouted a little bit. I found some really very interesting compositions. And this first one, I'm going to be shooting right down the top of the dam, and I like the symmetry of all those lamp posts, those light posts. And I'm using a dark orange filter. I'll have to increase my exposure by 2 stops. I'll be using the light meter built into the camera. As you might recall, this thing is turned off until you pop up the hood, then the light meter activates, so you can't wear down the batteries. And so I'm going to be reducing my exposure by 2 stops, or increasing it by 2 stops to compensate for that red filter. Got my lens shade on, and one of the things I'm going to do is this foreground post going horizontally, I'm going to try and keep that square. It's going to look weird if it's a little wonky. So I'm going to adjust that. I have to put the taking lens in the center of one of these openings here. I don't care where the top one falls. That's just the focusing lens. The bottom one is the taking lens. So we'll go ahead and see what I can come up with here. Great. Okay, that's one down. And now going over here about 8 feet, I found another interesting composition. So let's just make a move. Okay, I found another interesting composition. You might be able to see it from that camera view. This little triangular, this white brace on the side here. If I get my camera down low, I can kind of frame that whole line of light posts. Now remember, this is black and white, so those white bulbs on the posts are going to turn really white, and the sky is going to be really dark. So with this orange filter, that's what we need. This is my favorite filter, by the way. Rattan filter, the equivalent is like a 15G. That's the dark orange. 25A would be red, but this is just perfect. It's kind of a good compromise between red and yellow. So I'm going to get in here and get this lined up and see what we can come up with. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, it's another one down. So let's go on to our next spot. Okay, found another kind of interesting composition here, but I have faced a little challenge. I can't shoot this way through this fence here, and so one of the great things about this particular type of camera, we mentioned earlier, this has kind of a sports finder. So what I can do is just pop that top part out of the way. I've already focused on the scene, and I'm going to actually look through the little peephole here and just frame it that way, because I can hold up here and get this in between there. But the problem I face is that I got to hold it steady, and and we're on a really steep sandbank right here, so it's going to be hard for me to hold steady. But what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to turn on the delay timer. That'll give me 10 seconds delay. So I'm going to put that down. Then I activate this. I'll put this up in position, and it'll be just perfectly framed. So bear with me. Okay, we started it now. We got 10 seconds to go. Perfect. Oh, that was great. Okay, we're at our final location right now, and you'll see behind me this dam, and it's got these beautiful archways and the different patterns, and I love the light fixtures on top there. And with my deep orange filter, the sky's going to go really dark. Those light bulbs will just pop. And so interesting compositions everywhere you look here. And as I tell some of my students sometimes, this location is what Tom Cruise would say is a very target-rich environment, because everywhere you look, they're great pictures. So thanks for joining me, and I hope that you enjoy the following images, and please join me next time. Give it a thumbs up if you got anything out of it, share it with your friends, and please consider subscribing.